Have you ever stumbled upon a message at the perfect moment, as if the universe paused just for you? This isn't an accident. This is alignment. This video didn't find you. You summoned it. I recall a night long ago, walking alone down a quiet street in New York. I had just finished a lecture on the law of assumption, and I was deeply contemplating whether the teachings I had shared were truly reaching those who needed them most. As I passed a bookstore window, something peculiar occurred. A man stepped out, holding a copy of a book I had once quoted. He turned, looked at me directly, and said, "This found me just when I was about to give up." And in that moment, I realized something eternal. Truth arrives when the soul is ready to receive. That man didn't just find a book, he found himself in the reflection of it. And you, my friend, have not stumbled upon this message by accident. You are the one who summoned it. You have drawn this moment into your world through your inner state, through your imagination, through a silent and powerful assumption you once dared to entertain. Everything you experience is born first in your consciousness. The world does not move independently of your awareness. To say, "This video found me," is simply to acknowledge that your own divine consciousness drew it near. It was your assumption of needing a message, a spark, a reminder that caused it to surface. You are always creating, whether consciously or unconsciously. The only question is, are you aware of your power? When you assume something to be true, even in the absence of physical evidence, you activate the law of assumption, and that assumption begins to solidify into form. This is not fantasy. This is the foundation of manifestation. You live in a world of reflections, and your inner beliefs are the light that cast those reflections. You are not waiting for life to happen. You are instructing it. Always. Imagination is not a child's toy. It is your creative faculty, the bridge between the invisible and visible. When you imagine something vividly and dwell in its reality, you plant a seed that must bear fruit. The reason this video came to you is because somewhere within you imagined relief, clarity, or hope, and imagination obeyed. What you now hear, you first called forth. The outer world is a mirror, nothing more. You cannot change it by force or effort unless you first rearrange your inner state. The message you are receiving now is simply a reflection of your inner shift. Perhaps you didn't realize you had shifted, but your results always reveal the truth of your consciousness. It is only by changing the internal dialogue that you witness new external patterns. You are not late. You are not behind. You have found this message precisely when you were vibrationally aligned with it. The universe is not random, it is law. Just as you cannot hear a radio frequency unless you're tuned into it. You cannot receive wisdom unless your emotional vibration and identity are ready to absorb it. You are on time because you are consciousness unfolding in perfect rhythm. Even after receiving a powerful revelation, the key is persistence. This message is not a temporary fix. It is an invitation. Will you continue to dwell in the feeling of already having what you desire, or will you abandon it the moment doubt appears? True transformation occurs when you refuse to leave the state, no matter what your senses report. Feeling is the secret. Stay there. If you want something new in your life, become someone new in your mind. Reality does not change by willpower, it changes by identity. You do not manifest what you want, you manifest who you are being. Begin to embody the version of yourself who already lives the life you long for. As you hold that image steadily, you will find yourself walking into it, step by step. This message may stir your heart, but do not be tempted to measure its results too soon. Trust the unseen process. The seed has been planted. Now release it to the soil of consciousness. Let go, not in apathy, but in divine trust. You have summoned a truth and received it. That is all that matters. You are no longer the same person who pressed play. You have already begun. Do not believe for a moment that creation is something that occurs occasionally or sporadically. You are always creating, whether you are aware of it or not. Your inner world is casting a shadow upon the screen of life. There is not a single experience in your outer reality that has not been summoned by a corresponding state within your consciousness. Creation is not an act. It is a condition. It is the natural result of being. The moment you identify as I am, you begin the process of creation. That I am is the seed, the center, the birthplace of all that surrounds you. The reason many fail to recognize the creative process is because it often unfolds invisibly and subtly. You may say, I never asked for this, and yet your inner conversations were drenched with worry. You may say, this is not what I want, and yet you constantly gave your attention to fear, to doubt, to lack. What you dwell upon emotionally repeatedly becomes the mold in which reality pours itself. It does not come because you wish it or plead for it. It comes because you embody it. You are not merely observing life, you are perpetually broadcasting it. Every thought, every reaction, every inner picture held with feeling acts as a signal, a command. The world has no choice but to respond. Like a mirror, it does not argue with you. It does not criticize or delay arbitrarily. It reflects. If you smile, it smiles. If you frown, it frowns. If you dwell in abundance, you are met with abundance. If you habitually identify with lack, life will give you more opportunities to experience lack. This principle is not reserved for the spiritually advanced or the mystically inclined. It applies to every man, woman, and child alive, for it is the law of consciousness. The moment you assume a feeling to be true, regardless of facts, your inner world begins to reshape itself around that feeling. Then, in time, the outer world catches up. You are not merely hoping for a better future, you are designing it, frame by frame, in the theater of your imagination. But here's the truth that must be grasped. It is not enough to know that you are creating. You must become deliberate in what you create. Most people live reactively. They allow the evidence of their senses to dictate their inner state. They become victims of external conditions rather than masters of inner conviction. They say, when things change, I'll feel better, not knowing that things only change after they feel better within. The outer follows the inner, not the other way around. This is why you must train the mind to dwell only on that which you wish to express. If you desire peace, then begin to assume the feeling of one who is at peace. Imagine what it would be like to wake each morning with calmness, to walk through the day with clarity, to sleep at night with satisfaction. Feel it real. Let that be your atmosphere, your mental dwelling place. Do not allow current circumstances to convince you otherwise. Circumstances are past creations. They are echoes, not forecasts. It is not important how long you have lived in contradiction to your desire. The moment you turn inward and assume a new state, creation begins again. You may have spent years in darkness, but it takes only one moment of awakening to ignite light. Creation does not require time, it requires assumption. The delay that appears in the external world is simply the time it takes for form to match your new identity. But that identity, that shift, is instant and powerful. You may say, but I did not mean to imagine that, or I wasn't conscious of what I was doing. Yet the law does not discriminate between the conscious and the unconscious. The world does not reflect your wishes, it reflects your convictions. Whether you know you are doing it or not, you are always affirming something within yourself. That affirmation becomes flesh. You cannot escape this process, but you can direct it. You can begin right now to accept only those inner truths which are worthy of outward expression. Do not look outside yourself for confirmation. The world will catch up, but it is not your guide, it is your follower. Your emotional state, your deep assumptions are the real causes of all that you see. Begin to cultivate the feeling of the fulfilled wish and live from it daily. Speak to yourself as one who already possesses what you desire. Let your imagination be saturated with the end result, not the process. The more you persist in this inner occupation, the more reality must yield. If today you are hearing these words and they resonate deeply, it is because your soul has drawn them into your experience. You have created this very moment, just as you have created countless others. The question is not, am I creating? The question is, what am I creating? Your thoughts, your feelings, your assumptions, they are not idle. They are seeds. The ground is always fertile. It is not a matter of if the seed will grow, but which seed you choose to plant. When you fully grasp this truth, you will no longer fear the future, for the future is being written now, not by fate or chance, but by the imaginal activity you entertain each day. You are always creating. Make it conscious, make it beautiful, make it yours. The law of assumption is the cornerstone of all true manifestation. It is not a theory to be debated, nor a superstition to be feared. It is an immutable principle working ceaselessly through the consciousness of every individual. The outer world bends not to effort or pleading, but to belief. And belief in its purest form is assumption. Whatever you assume to be true, even if all the facts of the world deny it, will in time become visible in your world. It does not matter how large or small the desire, how long it has been delayed, or how impossible it may appear. The law does not sleep. The law does not forget. The law does not fail. To assume is not to wish or to hope. It is to accept a state as already fulfilled, regardless of appearances. You do not ask, will this happen? You declare, this is now my reality. You walk in the end, speak from the end, think from the end, and in doing so, you awaken within yourself the seed of manifestation. The moment you persist in that inner conviction, the entire universe begins its silent work to align all things necessary for that outcome to materialize. Doors will open, people will shift, circumstances will arrange themselves, but the work is not yours to manipulate. It is yours to believe. Most individuals live under the mistaken assumption that they must earn their desires through struggle or time. But the law of assumption says otherwise. What you consistently assume as true, you will experience. If you assume you are unloved, the world will echo that back to you. If you assume you are blessed, fortunate, and abundant, then life must conform to that vision. There is no morality attached to the law. It does not reward or punish, it reflects. You are not being tested by life, you are being mirrored. What you feel to be true about yourself, what you assume in silence, becomes your visible destiny. This is not a matter of effort, but of direction. The mind must be directed inward. For most, the senses have become their master. They see a condition and they declare it as real. They feel lack and they announce it as truth. But the senses report only the past, the consequence of old assumptions. If you want to change what you see, you must change what you assume. It is not the world that must shift. It is your concept of self, and that concept, when embraced fully, will project itself outward as a new world. The law of assumption never fails because it is grounded in identity. You do not attract what you want. You attract what you are. If you desire love, you must become one who is already loved. If you desire wealth, you must dwell in the state of the wealthy, not by pretending, not by forcing, but by assuming. There is a vast difference between pretending and assuming. Pretending acknowledges the lack and seeks to cover it with imagination. Assumption ignores the lack altogether and moves directly into the state desired with no hesitation, no questioning, no waiting. Every desire begins with an act of selection. You select the desired state, not with your hands, not with your eyes, but with your attention. You place your focus upon that which is unseen, and you clothe it in the feeling of reality. You do not beg for it to appear. You do not plead for signs. You walk, act, and think from it. And as you persist, the invisible becomes visible. That which was only a thought becomes a form. That which was once a dream becomes your daily experience. And the world will call it coincidence or luck or magic, but you will know it as law. Even now, as you hear these words, you are assuming something. Perhaps you are assuming that change is possible, or perhaps you are assuming that it is not. Whatever your dominant inner stance, your word must obey. The law has no preference. It serves the one who understands it just as surely as it governs the one who ignores it. It is as natural as gravity, as certain as sunrise. And once you awaken to its function, you will no longer wait for life to grant you permission. You will grant it to yourself, inwardly and silently. You do not need to understand how the assumption will unfold. You need only persist in it. Let the details be arranged by the intelligence that governs all things. Your task is singular. Dwell in the end. Remain faithful to the unseen. Speak to yourself as one who already knows. Give up the language of limitation and take on the speech of fulfillment. Do not compromise your assumption with logic. The world of cause is not found in facts, but in feelings. Persist there, and life must obey. So test it. Not tomorrow, now. Assume something beautiful, something bold. Feel it real. Walk as if it were already yours. Act not in delusion, but in confidence. If the law never fails, then there can be no risk. Only the delay caused by doubt can hinder you. Drop the doubt. Drop the need to see results. Assume it done and move forward. You are the author of your world. The law of assumption is your pen. Imagination is not a passive tool or a luxury of the idle mind. It is the divine spark in man, the very mechanism by which creation flows. The entire structure of your world rises out of what you dare to imagine and emotionally accept as true. You do not imagine for entertainment. You imagine to become. Every act of imagination is a creative act, whether conscious or unconscious, and every outcome you witness in your external life began as a seed first planted in that invisible garden of your mind. People walk about believing that reality is external, that life is something that happens to them, around them, or in spite of them. But the truth is the exact reverse. Life happens through them, from within them, in response to their most dominant inner images. You cannot escape imagination. You are using it constantly. The only choice you have is whether to use it deliberately or to let it run wild in a state of fear, memory, or anxiety. If you observe closely, you will notice that everything that comes to pass in your life is preceded by a feeling, a mental image, or a persistent inner conversation. You may think it to be coincidence, but coincidence is merely the name man gives to what he cannot explain. Imagination is never random. It is law. It is the only creative power in the universe, and it operates within you this very moment. When you imagine a thing and feel it as though it were real, you set into motion unseen currents that must, by law, crystallize into your physical world. The one who understands this becomes fearless. No longer bound by the seeming facts of life, he turns within and begins to reshape his world at the root. Rather than striving to change people or conditions, he revises his own imagination. He knows that every individual he meets, every situation he experiences, is but a reflection of his inner state. If the reflection displeases him, he does not fight it. He changes the image he holds inside, and the mirror, without resistance, reflects a new truth. The great secret is to imagine the end. Not how it will come, not when it will arrive, but what it feels like to already be the person you desire to be. That feeling, pure, undiluted, and persistent, is the divine creative force. It is not words that create. It is not action alone that moves the world. It is the fusion of imagination and feeling. When these two come together, nothing can prevent the expression from becoming form. You may look upon your current world and say, but this is not what I imagined. And yet, if you're honest with yourself, you will see that at some level you did, perhaps not with intent, but with belief, with repeated inner acceptance, with prolonged attention to unwanted outcomes. You may have worried, feared, doubted, or reacted, and those emotions gave your imagination its direction. This is why discipline is so vital, not of the body, but of the mind. Imagination must be governed, directed, and trained to dwell only on that which you wish to express. You cannot serve two masters. You cannot imagine abundance and dwell in lack. You cannot imagine love and expect rejection. You must live in your imagination as though it were already fact. Speak from that place. Think from that place. React from that place. Let your imagination override the senses. The senses will always attempt to argue, to present facts and timelines. But facts are the footprints of all assumptions. Your power lies not in observing the world, but in creating it afresh. Even the body responds to imagination. You can lie in bed, perfectly still, and imagine walking across a room. If done with full conviction, your heart rate will rise, your breath will change, and your nervous system will react. Why? Because the body does not distinguish between real and imagined experience. Neither does the world. The outer world is simply a larger body, a collective echo of the inner states of men. Change the inner movie, and the external projection must shift in harmony. To imagine is to claim divine authority. It is to step into the role of author, director, and actor in your own drama. You are not the spectator of life. You are its initiator. Even now, as you hear these words, you are forming images, some of agreement, some of resistance. Those images, especially the ones accompanied by emotion, will determine what comes next. Choose wisely. Do not imagine what you fear. Imagine what you love. If there is one thing to be mastered in this world, it is the conscious use of imagination. It requires no money, no effort, no education. It is already yours. The question is not whether you have it, but whether you use it in alignment with your desires. Every success, every healing, every transformation begins first as a vision, felt deeply, assumed repeatedly, and allowed to grow until it becomes fact. This is not fiction. This is law. This is creation, and it all begins in imagination. The great illusion of life is the belief that the outer world is the cause and the inner world the effect. This is the lie that has kept men bound for centuries, struggling against shadows, attempting to fix mirrors rather than changing their reflections. But when you come to understand that the outer world is nothing but a projection of your inner state, you are reborn in power. You no longer plead for change. You assume it. You no longer react. You create. And this realization begins the true journey of conscious living. Every man lives within a self-made world. That world may appear shared, populated, objective, but it is filtered entirely through his inner assumptions. If you assume that life is against you, the world will confirm it with resistance, with betrayal, with delay. If you assume that life is for you, it will open its gates at every turn. You are not living in the world. You are living through a lens, and that lens is your consciousness. To believe that outer events shape your life is to surrender your divine inheritance. Your power does not lie in the hands of people, circumstances, or chance. It lies in the state you occupy and the thoughts you consistently entertain. You can measure your inner world not by your words, but by your reactions. What you habitually feel in response to life reveals what you have assumed to be true within. A man who assumes he is successful will carry a different energy, a different bearing, even before success appears in the outer world. People will treat him differently, though they know not why. Opportunities will arise not because he chased them, but because he aligned with them internally. And a man who assumes he is a failure, no matter how many new opportunities appear, will unconsciously sabotage them, for he cannot rise above his own self-concept. The law is simple. Your outer world can never exceed your inner conviction. It is if you would change your world, do not waste energy adjusting conditions. Go to the root, your inner state. For the world is a mirror, and mirrors do not create, they reflect. You cannot demand a mirror to smile unless you first change your expression. So too the world cannot give you peace, joy, or success unless you first embody those states inwardly. The cause is not outside, the cause is within. This is why we speak of dwelling in the end. To dwell in the end is to move your consciousness into the state of already having, already being, already knowing. You do not wait for the outer to convince you. You convince yourself by feeling it real within. This feeling, once fully accepted, begins to reorder your world. Events change. People change. Doors open. Not because you pushed or persuaded, but because you have shifted your inner identity. And life obeys. Many people live in a loop of reaction. They see lack and feel lack. They feel lack and imagine more lack. Then they experience even greater lack in their world. It becomes a spiral. But to break that pattern, one need only interrupt the inner assumption. To say, I am wealthy, when your bank account is empty is not delusion. It is creation. When spoken with feeling and persistence, it plants a seed. And though the soil of the world may take time to respond, it must. for it has no will of its own. The inner world is not imagination in the weak sense of fantasy. It is imagination in the divine sense of creation. When you revise a past memory, you change its influence. When you forgive within, you heal relationships without. When you persist in a mental image of victory, you draw it toward you like metal to a magnet. These are not metaphors. These are principles. Even your physical body obeys the inner world. When you are joyful inwardly, your body heals faster. When you are bitter or anxious, your body deteriorates. Science may explain this through hormones or chemistry, but the truth remains. The unseen creates the seen. The same is true of relationships, health, finances, and every category of life. Nothing begins out there. It all begins within. There is nothing to wait for. You do not wait for circumstances to change so you can feel better. You feel better now by decision and let the circumstances catch up. You do not wait for approval from the world. You give yourself approval and the world reflects that confidence. When you step into a new inner state, you bring forth a new outer world. It cannot resist you, for it is you. This is why prayer is not begging, it is assuming. When you pray from the feeling of already having received, your prayer becomes a declaration. And that declaration has creative power. You are not calling upon a distant force, you are awakening the infinite within. That infinite speaks through your assumptions, paints through your imagination, breathes through your identity, and your world, without knowing why, will mirror it perfectly. You need not change others to change your life. Let go of trying to fix the mirror. Look instead to the image within. If you see yourself as loved, life will love you back. If you see yourself as abundant, life will find ways to increase you. The inner world is the womb of all experience. Nourish it well, and the fruit will appear in its time. But remember, never the other way around. The mirror does not smile first, you dear. There is no such thing as chance when it comes to the law of consciousness. You are not late. You have not missed your opportunity. You are not behind schedule. The concept of timing in the physical world is a reflection of your own inner readiness to receive what you have assumed. When you understand this, you stop measuring your progress by clocks and calendars. You begin to measure it by your inner conviction, by the degree of faith you hold in the unseen becoming seen. The moment you fully assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, creation is complete. The time it takes to appear in the outer world is not a delay in truth, but a gestation. Just as a seed must first be buried before it can bloom, your assumptions must first be accepted internally before they bloom externally. This is not a punishment, nor is it a sign of failure. It is the rhythm of life, responding not to your desperation, but to your belief. There are those who will imagine a thing and immediately grow frustrated when it does not appear the next morning. But the law does not respond to urgency, it responds to certainty. The desperate man waits for results as proof, but the faithful man walks as if it is already done. And that inner posture is the true measure of alignment. The appearance of delay is simply the echo of a past state still fading away. It is not your current assumption that is slow, it is the old one that is dissolving. You must not confuse the removal of the old with the absence of the new. In every moment you are in perfect alignment with what you are assuming to be true. If what you desire has not yet appeared, it is because you are still in the process of shifting into full identity with it. That shift is not always loud. It is often subtle. It occurs when your inner dialogue begins to match your desired state, when you no longer need signs to believe, when you no longer talk about your desire as something separate from you, when you begin to feel that your desire is inevitable, natural, even mundane, then you know it is near. You see, time is not your enemy, it is your servant. It reveals to you what you have truly accepted as real. If you say, I want this thing, but time continues and it does not appear, it is not time that is faulty. It is your inner assumption that is still inconsistent. But the moment you hold the feeling without contradiction, without wavering, time bends. Events move. Circumstances shift. And what seemed impossible becomes normal. When you find yourself discovering a teaching at the very moment you need it, or meeting someone at the perfect hour, it is not coincidence. It is your inner world manifesting alignment with precision. You are never too early and never too late. You arrive at wisdom when you are ready to receive it, and when you are ready to receive, the world must obey. The video you needed appears. The message you were longing for comes. The path becomes visible. Not before, not after, but in that sacred moment of internal readiness. The world will tell you otherwise. It will say that you missed your window, that others are ahead of you, that age matters, that time is limited. But none of these things hold weight against the law. There are those who rise to success at 60 and those who do it at 20. The difference is not time, it is assumption. One assumed it could be done, and the other assumed it was too late. And so it was done for one and not for the other. The law is just. It plays no favorites. It answers to belief, not birthdays. When you feel that you are running out of time, you activate the feeling of lack. You assume that you are not supported. That assumption held firmly delays what you want, not because time is cruel, but because your inner world is out of sync with your desire. But when you say to yourself, I am right on time, you relax. You allow, you align. And that calm state of faith accelerates your manifestation faster than any frantic effort could ever accomplish. It is not your job to determine how long a manifestation should take. Your job is to maintain the state of already having. The when, the how, the sequence, these are not your burden. They are answered automatically once the assumption is stable. When you drop the need to calculate the timing, the miracle arrives. You must understand that the bridge of incidents leading you to your desire is not separate from you. It is you. It is the unfolding of your inner state. Trust it. Let go of the need to compare your timeline to that of others. You are not on their path. You are on your own. And your path is unfolding as you assume it to be. What you call divine timing is simply the outer world arranging itself to mirror your inner world with perfect clarity. So if this message has reached you today, it is because something in you is ready. You called it forth. You summoned it, not with your voice, but with your vibration. And now that it has come, use it. Strengthen your assumption. Recommit to your vision. And know with unwavering certainty, your timing is perfect because your consciousness has made it so. The key to all creation lies not in the moment of desire, nor even in the moment of visualization, but in the persistent occupation of the state desired. To assume a state once is not enough. To feel something briefly and then retreat to your old beliefs will only produce fleeting impressions that vanish like dreams upon waking. But to persist, to hold the feeling of the wish fulfilled as your dwelling place, is to command reality to conform. Persistence is not effort. It is not straining. It is not repetition without faith. Persistence is loyalty to your inner reality, regardless of what the outer world suggests. It is choosing moment by moment to remain in the consciousness of already having, already being, already becoming. And the outer world must yield to it, for it has no power of its own. You must understand that what you feel to be true about yourself is what the world reflects, not what you wish were true, not what you pretend to be true in moments of silence, but what you feel consistently, habitually, as your natural identity. That is the secret. And to change your world, you must change that inner feeling, not by force, but by dwelling there until it becomes familiar, until it becomes home. The imagination is the workshop of creation, but feeling is the fuel. You can imagine every detail vividly, but without feeling, it is a lifeless picture. When you imagine and feel the reality of it, when you feel it to the point of being convinced it is already so, then you are creating from truth. You are calling forth the invisible and instructing it to become visible. But this state must be persisted in. It is easy to feel rich in a moment of inspiration and then let doubt return when bills arrive. It is easy to feel love during a meditation and then allow insecurity to creep back when silence surrounds you. The question is not whether you can feel it once, but whether you can remain there long enough for reality to bend. This is why we say, persist, not forcefully but faithfully. There will always be tests, moments when your senses scream in contradiction to your assumption. The world will show you evidence of the old state, for it takes time for the echo of the past to fade. Do not be deceived by appearances. If you have truly changed your inner state, the world has no choice but to catch up. And it will. But you must not vacillate. Do not leave the state just because results are not immediate. Creation is already complete within you. The outer expression is merely the unfolding of that seed. You may say, but I have imagined for days and nothing has happened. That is not true. Something has happened. Your state has shifted. And that shift has sent out a signal into the world, initiating a bridge of incidents that must be walked. The delay is not denial. The delay is often protection, reordering, preparation. But your job is not to manage the bridge. Your job is to remain in the end, to feel the joy, the certainty, the relief of already having. When you persist in the feeling of the wish fulfilled, your inner conversations change. You begin to speak to yourself from a different place. No longer do you ask, when will it come? You say, this is who I am. You no longer look for proof, for your state is its own evidence. You carry yourself with the energy of one who is certain, and the world bends to meet your conviction. The emotions you feel are not random. They are indicators of the state you occupy. If you feel doubt, you have stepped out of the state. If you feel joy, peace, and confidence, you are within it. Use these feelings as your compass. They are not the result of the world. They are the cause. And when you stabilize the feeling of the end, the world must conform. Let nothing take you from that place. Not the opinions of others, not the delays, not the old patterns that try to return. You are not who you were. You are who you assume yourself to be now. And reality does not argue, it reflects. So remain faithful to your vision. Speak to yourself each day as one who already possesses it. Walk, breathe, and move as if it were already yours. And slowly, quietly, but inevitably, the world around you will mirror that assumption. You are not waiting for a miracle. You are becoming the miracle by persisting in its feeling. The feeling is the cause, not the result. Do not wait for the world to give you permission to feel blessed. Feel blessed now. And the world will have no choice but to validate that feeling. This is not wishful thinking. It is the operation of law. Whatever you seek, persist in the feeling of already having it. Let it be the tone of your being. Let it color your thoughts, your actions, your responses. And in time, not because you tried harder, but because you believe deeper, it will harden into fact. That is the promise, and the promise never fails. The world you see is not made of things. It is made of states of consciousness. These states are not outside of you, they are within. And the one who understands this truth begins to see the world not as fixed, but as fluid. What appears real and immovable is, in fact, the projection of the state you occupy. You do not attract what you want. You attract what you are. And what you are is determined by what you identify with. You shift your world not by effort, not by manipulation, but by shifting the concept you hold of yourself. Identity is the root of manifestation. To change your outer reality, you must first assume a new identity within. Not pretend, not wish, but truly become it, internally. This shift in self-concept is not a surface affirmation. It is a change in the core of being. It is the quiet but powerful choice to no longer refer to the past for who you are, but to accept a new truth and allow it to inform every thought, emotion, and action. If you desire to live differently, you must die to the version of yourself that created the current experience. Every new world requires a new self to inhabit it. You may imagine wealth, love, health, freedom. But if you still see yourself as unworthy, lacking, sick, or powerless, your world will reflect the identity not the desire. It is identity that governs experience. You are always expressing what you truly believe yourself to be. And the moment you shift that belief, even silently, the structure of your reality begins to rearrange itself. This is why the instruction is not to desire something, but to live from it. You must feel from the place of already being the person who possesses the thing. This shift of position is what transforms. You are not trying to become, you are being. And in that being, the world responds. It cannot do otherwise. You become a new center of gravity, and everything begins to orbit around the new state. Think of this. A man who identifies as a victim will experience betrayal even in places where love is present. A man who identifies as unloved will reject affection even when it is freely offered. It is not the world that is unkind, it is the identity that filters perception. Change the filter and the entire world appears new. This is not psychological manipulation. It is the metaphysical foundation of life. Do not be discouraged by the seeming slowness of change. The old identity has momentum. It will rise again and try to reclaim you. It will whisper doubts, replay memories, present evidence, but you are not required to listen. You are free to ignore it and assume a new self again and again until it becomes stable. Identity must be claimed by repetition and persistence, and the one who persists becomes. If you want to be successful, begin to ask, how does one who is successful think? How does he rise in the morning? How does he carry himself, speak to others, react to setbacks? Then assume that identity internally, live from it even before the world acknowledges it. The world only acknowledges what you declare inwardly. It waits for your decision, and once that decision is made and maintained, nothing can stop it from becoming visible. You must stop referring to your past for answers. The past is nothing but the record of former states. It holds no power except what you give it. You are not bound by history. You are free to assume anything now, and if that assumption is occupied long enough, it becomes your experience. The world cannot help but reflect it, for the outer is always the echo of the inner. When you assume a new identity, there will be no thunder, no announcement, but the shift is real. Something invisible changes. The thoughts you receive are different. The moods you feel begin to align with a new state. People begin to treat you differently, though they don't know why. Opportunities arise that never appeared before. And all of it is the result of a single internal act, the choice to be a new version of yourself. You are not waiting for the world to give you permission to change. The world is waiting for you to change so it can respond. There is nothing outside of you that needs to move first. You are the cause. You are the source. The old self may have felt stuck, forgotten, rejected, but the new self is free. It is received, supported, and seen. And as you live in that state, it becomes natural. What once felt like a dream becomes routine. Self-shift. Not your environment, not your relationships, not your job, but your identity. Ask yourself daily, who am I being now? And if the answer does not match the life you desire, do not condemn yourself. Simply assume again, re-enter the state, recommit to the new version, because every time you do, you build a bridge, and one day, without fanfare, you find yourself standing in the reality that once seemed impossible. Not because the world changed, but because you did. To trust the unseen is to step into your divine inheritance. It is to move beyond the limitations of the senses and dwell in the unseen reality that you have chosen and claimed within. What you see, touch, and hear is only the echo of past beliefs. It is not cause, it is not substance. It is the outer crust of what has already been imagined and accepted. If you would shape tomorrow, you must turn your attention inward and live by faith in the invisible. This is not blind belief, it is conscious knowing, a certainty not born of logic, but of spiritual law. There is a moment in every creation when you must let go. Not let go of the desire, but of the tension. Let go of the clinging. Let go of the striving. The harvest does not come to the one who keeps digging up the seed. It comes to the one who plants, waters, believes, and allows. You must learn to rest in your assumption. Rest is not inactivity. It is inner confidence. It is a refusal to entertain the idea that what you have claimed will not appear. The unseen is not less real than the seen. In fact, it is more real. Everything you now call real, every structure, every circumstance, every relationship was once unseen. It existed first in the mind of someone who dared to believe in it before it appeared. The world you walk through is built on imagination, sustained by belief, and shaped by persistent assumption. When you accept this truth, you realize that nothing is truly fixed. All things bend to the one who remains loyal to the invisible. But most people have been trained to doubt what they cannot see. They have been conditioned to respond only to physical evidence. This is why they remain trapped in cycles. They try to change the world by reacting to it, not realizing that the world is the mirror, not the source. The one who trusts the unseen acts not from what is, but from what shall be. He thinks, feels, and moves as though his desire were already fulfilled. And in that faith, he changes the route. He does not wait for the mirror to smile. He smiles first. Letting go is not giving up. It is the highest form of belief. It says, I no longer need to check. I know. It means you are no longer looking for confirmation. You have moved beyond the stage of wondering and have entered the state of being. This state does not seek. It expresses. It radiates. It draws to itself all that corresponds to its frequency. And the world responds, not because you chased it, but because you aligned with it. To live by this law, you must cultivate inner stillness, not silence of the body, but of the mind. When the mind is still, it hears the deeper voice, the voice that says, all is well. This voice does not come from outside. It arises within the very core of your being. It reminds you that the unseen reality you hold in your imagination is already taking form, that every assumption you persist in is already building a bridge, that every feeling you dwell in is already shaping the next scene. You may be tempted to rush the process, to ask, where is it? When will it come? But every such question reveals that you have stepped out of the state of the wish fulfilled. The one who truly trusts does not ask if. He knows that it is already done, and so he walks forward, not in hesitation, but in expectation. The delay, if it appears, is never punishment. It is preparation. It is the world aligning itself to match your inner world. It is the echo catching up to your voice. Understand this. When you let go, you are not losing control. You are stepping into the only real control there is. Control of your state. The outer world is never yours to manage directly. You do not move people, orchestrate events, or force conditions. You move self. And when self is moved into the right state, the world must bend to match it. This is the law, and the law never fails. So surrender, not to defeat, but to faith. Surrender the need to micromanage. Surrender the obsession with results. Focus instead on staying in the state. Practice imagining the end until it feels natural. Practice gratitude as if you already possess the thing. Speak as one who knows, not as one who hopes. Let your energy announce the reality you have assumed, even if your senses remain unchanged. This is the quiet power, the hidden mastery, the secret of those who appear to live effortlessly, receiving what they desire without strain. They have learned to trust the unseen and let go. They have stopped trying to create through effort and have begun to create through alignment. They know that reality is not out there. It is in here, shaped by feeling, confirmed by faith, and birthed by imagination. Even now, the unseen is working. Even now, things are being moved, paths are being made, what you desire is coming. Not because you struggle, but because you have claimed it inwardly and released it in faith. And as surely as night follows day, what was once invisible will stand before you in visible form. Not because the world changed, but because you did. Everything you have ever longed for already exists within you. The world you wish to experience is not waiting on time, effort, or luck, It is waiting on your assumption. The outer world is not a place of origin, but a place of reflection. Every relationship, every success, every challenge is a mirror cast from the consciousness you carry moment by moment. You are not at the mercy of fate. You are the operant power, silently sculpting your reality through imagination, belief, and persistent inner feeling. You have learned that you are always creating, that every thought, especially those woven with emotion, becomes the blueprint of your future. You have seen that the law of assumption never fails, for it is rooted in identity, and that identity, once shifted, commands the world to rearrange. You have come to know that imagination is divine, far more than daydream or wish. It is the mechanism of manifestation, the sacred power of creation given to you. The senses will try to deceive you. They will cry out with what is, but you now understand. What is seen is simply the evidence of past states. What is imagined, persisted in, and felt is what becomes. And this shift, this change in the foundation of your being is not delayed. It is unfolding the moment you believe. The world takes time to echo a new song, but it always does. You have discovered that the path is not linear, that your timing is perfect, not because of clocks or calendars, but because you are aligning from within. The unfolding of your desire is not late, it is exact, governed by the inner movement of assumption, not the outer appearance of conditions. And this precision is revealed most clearly when you remain steadfast in the feeling of the wish fulfilled. The work is not to chase, to strive, to perform for the world. The work is to persist in your inner state, to remain loyal to the unseen, to continue to dwell in the assumption even when the world is silent. This is the narrow gate, not effort but faith, not reaction but vision. And when you learn to dwell there, to persist, not by might but by quiet knowing, the impossible becomes routine. Your identity is the engine of creation. You shift reality, not by fixing things out there, but by assuming a new self within. That new self is not fiction. It is the most real thing about you. And the moment you claim it, without needing evidence, you become it. The outer world does not resist you. It waits for you to decide. And when the decision is made, you must trust. Trust that what you have imagined is working. Trust that letting go is not giving up, but sealing your fate. Trust that the unseen is not empty, but full of movement, support, and divine orchestration. In this trust, you relax. You no longer live by what you see, but by what you know. You no longer ask, where is it? You whisper, it is done. This video found you for a reason, not to entertain you, but to awaken you, not to give you something new, but to remind you of what you already possess. You are the key. You are the cause. You are the source of every unfolding. And now, as you go forward, the invitation is simple and sacred. Live in the end. Feel it real. Assume the highest truth and persist, for the world is yourself pushed out. And when the self is aligned with love, with power, with completion, the world quietly and faithfully returns it multiplied.